Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the news. It's Friday the 29th of September. We have got loads of news today. Firstly, United's scouting has taken an absolute revamp. Had a revamp. We've had troubles in the past bringing in players, certain parts of the world underutilised, not getting the players in that we should be, and United have taken steps to fix that finally, which I think is a massive bonus for the club. We'll also be looking at the injury situation. Of course, Laurie Whitwell commenting on that. I think because of these things off the field, the Sancho thing, maybe the Anthony thing, the Glazer situation, Ten Hag, I don't think he's been allowed any sort of leeway at all, despite the fact that United have got the most injuries, or joint most injuries in the Premier League. We'll be getting into that. And also, there's a sort of Barcelona back and forth going on. They potentially want Martial, of all people. We'll get into that. And also, the race for the next Iniesta is apparently on. And maybe United's new scouts can give us just a leg up in the race for the next Iniesta. Although if he is the next Iniesta, I mean, he's going to Barcelona and he's going to win 30 trophies, isn't he? So let's hope he's not the next Iniesta. Let's hope he's the next Paul Scholes, because then he ends up at United. But let's get into some of these stories. Let's start with Laurie Whitwell and get your comments in, get your thoughts in the comments. I'll be going through those as always, of course. Let's start with Laurie Whitwell, because United's injuries have been nothing short of a disgrace this season, have they? And you can see here Laurie saying Erik Ten Hag likes to keep a lid on injuries, but Manchester United currently have 9 players out, the joint most in the Premier League, with others also having spent time on the sidelines this season. A look at the factors, including a 62-game campaign around a World Cup. I mean, when you think about the injuries that we've had, and other than the saving grace, I think, for United, that's basically stopped us from having a 0-7 start to the season, is Rashford, Bruno, Casemiro. Those three staying fit. I know Casemiro's not at his best games. I know Rashford's got a lot of stick. I know Bruno's not been quite as productive as he has in the past. But if it weren't for those three, I think we're finished. I think United would be desperately struggling this season, because pretty much everyone else around them, you look through that defence, Luke Shaw gone, Malacia gone, Varane been out for weeks and has only just come back. Lisandro Martinez, I think, basically carrying an injury all season, barely been able to string 90 minutes together, let alone back-to-back 90 minutes together. He's now out as well. We've seen Harry Maguire out. We've seen Wan-Bissaka out. The only defender that we've had to stay fit all season is Diogo Dalot. Then you look at midfield. Amrabat was out when he first arrived. We've seen Mason Mount out for 6 weeks or so. Kobe Mainoo's not played a minute this season, despite featuring prominently in pre-season, and he's still some way to go. I think we're looking at the end of the October international break before we get him back. So that's just in those areas. Then obviously you've got the Anthony and Sancho both unavailable for admittedly drastically different reasons. Then we've had Højlund, who was injured and is only just coming to full fitness when he first arrived. Martial, of course, you're never quite sure what you're going to get there, but funnily enough, he's been one of the few players that's been fit. It's been pretty much a disaster in terms of injuries for Man United this season, and the fact that we are just seemingly when you hit the bottom, we're not on the way up yet, but we've just nicked our way past the bottom, hopefully, in terms of form, in terms of injuries. We saw a much more cohesive performance, I think, against Palace, which is the crucial thing for me. Everything seems so disjointed, and it was just guesswork and floundering against the likes of Bayern Munich. I think the Bayern Munich game in particular felt the most, what are we doing here? No one seemed to know what they were doing. And then we saw against Burnley a performance that wasn't great, but one that seemed to have a little bit of team spirit to it. We sat back, we absorbed pressure, we didn't allow many chances, and we won the game. And then the Palace game was the first time we actually saw a front foot Manchester United with the likes of Mason Mount back, with the likes of Varane back as well from the start, which was good to see. And we took them on and we beat them comfortably. Hopefully we can move in that direction. But I know it's a little bit woe is me, but you can't pretend that injuries don't matter. Like, you look at, the only upsets we've seen in the league over the last 6 or 7 years is Liverpool winning it and Leicester winning it. Leicester had the least injuries of anyone in the league the season they won it, and Liverpool didn't get any major injuries to any of their main players the entire season that they won it. That isn't a coincidence. When the things are so tight, and not just at the top, because that's not where United are challenging, but even for the top 4 race, Tottenham seem to have got their act together. Arsenal seem to be, carrying on from where they left off last season. Liverpool are far, far better. I think they've won more games than anyone since, April last season. And obviously Man City are ever present in that top four. You have to be good to even get that. And, having 9 injuries to your players for the first 2-3 months of the season, that can make sort of irreparable damage to a fixture list and a calendar. So the fact that we're sort of muddling through, getting results here and there, hopefully we'll have some players back by the time the Champions League games really kick off. I know we've got the game on Tuesday, but hopefully we can sneak past Galatasaray. But yeah, these injuries, I think it's worth mentioning because it's not nothing. You can't win major trophies when half of your team is completely decimated. So I think that's fair enough. But let's move on from that. Let's stop talking about injuries because, at a certain point it is a little bit sort of navel gazing, isn't it so hard for us? Actually, get on with it. And we are getting on with it because this is the main story today. United are undergoing a scouting revamp, as you can see there. Manchester United revamp academy scouting recruitment. And I think this is massive because you look at, I'll get into some of the details. Actually, let's do that first, and then I'll give my opinion afterwards. Manchester United have made a number of changes to their academy scouting and recruitment department as they beef up their UK operations following Brexit. There have been a number of departures from the department, including the lead academy scout, Ronnie Cusick, who worked for United since January 2017, and Dave Bailey, who have been with them since July 2017 and focused on recruitment in the Northwest. Bailey has now joined Blackpool, where he started his career as the head of academy recruitment. You can see there's a whole list of people who have come in and who are taking up those roles. This also goes alongside an article and news coming out of the club the other day talking about how United want to beef up their operations in South America, which is somewhere where we very much, you don't even have to follow day in, day out to realise we don't have many players from South America. Obviously, we've got Garnacho, who's Argentinian, but in terms of our academy products, it's very much an area of sort of untapped potential, I think, for United. And especially when you see just look at the players who play for those nations. But even within the Premier League, you see Brighton doing fantastic things, finding great players, especially out of South America. We've seen Caicedo and a lot of their young players coming out of that part of the world. And United just don't do it. United simply don't have enough people or don't have the right people in those areas. Then you pair that with this, where United are recruiting differently around the country. And also you look at, the FA Youth Cup. I know United won it, the season before last, but Chelsea have won it, I think, 7 of the last 10 years or something ridiculous, because their academy recruitment is absolutely exceptional. Now, that's not translating to on the field performances for Chelsea for the first team, but that's because their whole model is about bringing people in for 2, 3, 4, 5 million and selling them a couple of years later for 8, 9, 10 million, making profit, repeated profit over and over again. There's a reason why I think Chelsea have made something ridiculous like 5 times more money from transfer sales than Man United have. I think they've sold £1 billion worth of players in the time that United have sold around £250 million worth of players. And part of that is this academy recruitment where they get in all of the best players they can, the ones who are very good, make their way into the first team and get trials and tried out in that arena. And the ones who aren't quite good enough, you'll probably still make a profit because they've been at the best academy in the world, or certainly the most successful academy in England, winning FA Youth Cups, winning league titles, and they've been there for 2 or 3 years. They've proven themselves, and teams will take a chance on them. It's another way to bring in money for the club, and also you get to sift through and have a look at the best youngsters in the world in the meantime. And it may seem a little bit cutthroat, and you're sort of using these players as a commodity rather than bringing them in and trying to nurture them into the first team. But it's allowed them to spend money, and it's allowed them to back the manager in ways that Manchester United absolutely don't do. And if we're not going to be getting money from the owners, which as long as the Glazers are here we won't be, we have to think of ways to sort ourselves out, sort of be a bit more self-reliant rather than thinking, well, the Glazers aren't helping us, so we can't do anything. There are ways to do this, and hopefully United are moving in that direction. Let's actually move on, because this is sort of links to this. Fabrizio Romano has been talking here, and this kind of goes to that point about United scouting more in South America. United looking at these youngsters from different parts of the world than we normally do. This is from Fabrizio Romano. He says, you understand that Manchester United and Chelsea scouts recently tracked Lorran, who is a Brazilian top talent born in 2006, which makes him, 17? Release clause included in his Flamengo deal is 50 million euros, which is probably around the 45 million pound mark. He signed with Rock Nation Sports Brazil, the agency of Jay-Z, with Vinicius Jr., Paqueta, Martinelli, and Endrick as well. So he's a player. I mean, it's some pretty substantial facial hair for a 17-year-old. I wasn't there at that point. I couldn't grow a sort of wicked goatee, and some of the lines on that, they are sort of fabulously thin, aren't they, them? Amazing. Sort of single atom thickness, moustache, and, very good stuff. But this is the sort of player I mean, and not just, he's Brazilian, he must be good. But, I always think, United have never had, I know we've had De Silva and Rafael and Fabio De Silva and Casemiro, but United sort of Brazilian and South American talent and players, just even any sort of transfers at all from that part of the world, we're really quite lacking in terms of excellent players that we've managed to scout from them. There's been no shortage of excellent players from that part of the world, obviously, but it's just not something that we've done. It's very much, go to Europe, go around Britain and get players. We don't seem to branch out, look at Asia and, Africa as a continent and South America as a continent. United don't really seem to be able or willing, I don't know what it is, to bring in youngsters from those parts of the world. And I think that's a massive shame because there's so much talent there. But there you go, United clearly keeping an eye on Lorran there, and we'll see if anything comes of that. Yash says, we buy ready-made players, and to a certain extent, United have to do that because we can't afford to risk, time and time again on 30, 40, 50 million pound players who don't work out. So you kind of have to let them prove themselves elsewhere. But if you can get in a step before that, or even look at, Real Madrid and Barcelona, they'll do this. And look, Vinicius Jr. or Martin Odegaard as an example. They spent, 40 million, 45 million euros on Martin Odegaard when he was 15 or 16. I remember it was just an astonishing amount of money for a kid. And then Vinicius Jr. is another one. I think they spent 50 million euros on him when he was 17 or 18 or maybe even younger. And they take these big risks. But for these real top talents, yes, there's an element of risk there. And I know Odegaard isn't tearing it up for Real Madrid, but he's clearly a very good player at Arsenal. But occasionally you get yourself a Vinicius Jr. out of it. Occasionally that turns into, one of these top players who actually we took a risk, we paid a lot of money, but now we've got maybe the best left winger in the world in Vinicius Jr. It was probably worth it. So sometimes, yes, you need to go with proven talent, but other times you need to take a risk and actually use your scouting network that United are now bolstering, which is good to see. But use your scouting network and trust that they can pick out a top player, because if they can't, why are they there? And if you never take any risks, why are they there? For too long, pretty much any United fan could analyse who we're going to buy, pick the players that we've ended up buying. It was no secret of Harry Maguire and Wan-Bissaka and, Jadon Sancho, Cristiano Ronaldo, Edinson Cavani. All of these players were just obvious, either up and coming in Wan-Bissaka's case, but, he'd had a great season in the Premier League. It was hardly a secret. Or world stars on their way down from their peak in the case of Cavani and Ronaldo. It doesn't take a scouting network to do that. And we've seen as well this year that it seems as though Erik ten Hag is selecting and picking a lot of the players that we sign. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because, he needs to be able to be happy with the players that we get. But you don't want that to be your only scouting method. You want people going, actually, there's this guy in Lithuania or this guy, in League Two, or there's someone in Brazil that you won't have heard of, but he's going to be amazing. When's the last time we did that? That's, it's just a shame that we don't seem to have this sort of ability to pick out players before they've proven themselves once in a while. It just doesn't really happen. The last one I could think of is Javier Hernandez. When was that? 15 years ago we signed him. From a team and a player that we'd not really heard of. Comes in, was an excellent player, and I know he, wasn't a 30-goal a season player, but he was a very, very good squad player and could, score against anyone. So it's just something United haven't done enough over the last few years, and that's also another reason why we never have any sell-on value. If you buy a player in their peak or past their peak, You can, look at Ronaldo, Cavani, even Maguire to a certain extent. I know he was entering his peak, but by the time they've been here for 3 years, they're either approaching 30 or well past 30. You're not getting any money for them. And that's an issue. Jay Frasconi says, if we had an effective scouting department in South America with new owners willing to spend money on that sort of prospect, it would pay massive dividends. Here's looking to the future under Ten Hag. Exactly, that's exactly my point. There are world-class talents all across the world on every continent, and United and a lot of other teams, and I think there's a lot that goes into that, especially if you look at Asia as a continent. It's a place that is wildly sort of underappreciated in terms of its footballing ability. But certainly South America, you don't need to be a genius to work out that a South American team wins the World Cup every other time. There's plenty of good players there, and United, for whatever reason, seem to struggle to tap into that. Let's move on then, because within this, the next step is, let's go the next Iniesta. Let's just say it. Let's just call him the next Iniesta. I don't know. What I want to work out is how he's even being referred to as Iniesta. Is it just because Barcelona are after him? Is that it? It says here, Erik ten Hag could find himself in another transfer battle with Barcelona as they both eye Royal Antwerp star Arthur Vermeeren. The 18-year-old has continued to capture attention of some of Europe's leading outfits and are now... He's continued to capture attention, and some of Europe's leading outfits are now weighing up a swoop. The midfielder has already drawn comparisons with Andres Iniesta, having helped his side to the Belgian title, meaning they are now playing in the Champions League. If we can scroll down there, it says, look at that, triple ads. Manchester United and Barcelona are keeping tabs on Vermeeren, who is valued at around £17 million, which, I would say for an Iniesta, that's pretty much a snip, isn't it? Already Catalan chief Deco has been in discussions with his counterpart at Antwerp, Marco Overmars, according to Mundo Deportivo, as they look to jump to the front of the queue. He's speaking here, Mark van Bommel, obviously used to play for Barcelona. He's the boss at Royal Antwerp at the minute. Says, I'm very happy that he's been playing with us all this time. It's incredible how he's improved in 1 year. Since he started playing, he's been decisive. He's not only interested in Barcelona, but for all the teams. I love that. Who's your favourite team? All the teams. That can't be true, can it? He can't be interested in all the teams. That's just them saying that to get a little bidding war going on, isn't it? Let's be honest. That to me sounds like he's going to go to Barca, but we wouldn't mind it if United ramped up the fee a little bit. So, yes, maybe we are interested. Yes, he could come to Manchester United. However, I wouldn't get our hopes up too much, because the fact that the manager is mentioning a specific team when he's talking about this player leaving, even if he's saying it's not just them, that suggests to me that they are very much in the lead for this player. And, we don't need an Iniesta in here because we've just signed Amrabat and we've got Kobe Mainoo and we've got Hannibal. So instead of having the next Iniesta, which is just, a shoddy knockoff, we've got the first Hannibal. Obviously, if Vermeeren does come to Manchester United, I'll be very happy. But for 17 million quid, this is maybe the sort of fee, the sort of player where you do go, actually, we will take a risk there. He may not be proven yet, but he's done very well at the level he's at. We can get him for under 20 million quid. These are the sorts of ones where you go, let's take a chance on that. Because in 2 years' time, he'll either be at Barcelona and unavailable, or he'll have built his reputation, he'll have done more for them, and you're looking at 40, 50, 60 million, like we've seen so many times with players that United have tried to find. Before we carry on, I want to talk to you a little bit about something we announced yesterday on Off the Bar. We are coming to Dublin. Stretford Paddock Live is back. We've got a live podcast coming to you. If you live in Dublin, if you're near Dublin, if you want to fly over and join us, that would be absolutely fantastic. But we are coming back to Ireland. Me, Steve, Adam, Jay, and also a fantastic Manchester United legend will be joining us. He's won multiple Premier Leagues. He's played hundreds and hundreds of times for Manchester United. This is a bona fide Manchester United legend, which we will be announcing very shortly. We can't announce it just yet, but trust us, it's happening, it's coming, and it's a fantastic, fantastic player that you can come and watch us chat to. The link to the tickets are in the description. There's also different sections you can have a VIP section. You can meet people, you can chat to people, all sorts going on. But the link is in the description. We'll pin that to the description. Put that in the description. We'll pin that in the chat as well. So if you are in Ireland or if you live nearby, please come over and chat to us. Come and see Stretford Paddock live. We're so excited to be coming back. It's the 28th of December this year, so we've got a couple of months left yet. Make sure you get your tickets early though, because we don't want to sell out and people miss out. So make sure you check that out. Let's move on. Sort of the other side of this coin here, there's this Iniesta thing and there's also a Martial thing. La Liga giants eyeing up a move for 27-year-old Manchester United ace. Barcelona are reportedly keen on Manchester United attacker Anthony Martial. This is coming out of Mundo Deportivo, who is, I think it's been sort of translated and put into English by Caught Offside. It says here that the 27-year-old has fallen down the pecking order at Old Trafford and he needs to leave the club in order to play regular first-team football. The mad thing is, he fell down the pecking order in 2018, or 2017, and then he sort of picked himself back up in 2020, and then we brought in Cavani, who was meant to be Martial's backup. He outperformed him, and he's not really been first choice ever since. He was meant to be first choice last season, but he couldn't stay fit. So it's been a strange sort of 3 or 4 years for Anthony Martial, where you're never quite sure what his position in the squad is. He was expected to develop into a world-class talent when he joined Man United, but his development has not gone according to plan. The 27-year-old can operate as a winger as well as a striker. His versatility will be an added bonus if Barca manage to sign him. The Spanish giants are going through financial difficulties and they are hoping to sign him for a nominal price. You say they're going through difficulties. Let me just have a look at this, because I saw something last night. This is in Forbes. FC Barcelona announced after-tax net profits of $320 million in record-breaking financial year. Barcelona have announced better figures than expected on Thursday after an after-tax net profit of €304 million, $320 million made in 2023. They don't need any nominal fee players. What is this? It's weird though, isn't it? Because there's a salary cap and there's other things at play, so they can make all this money, and yet still they're struggling to sort of sign players on for the season. However, this is a weird one because normally you think, well, he's not good enough for Barcelona. But then Barcelona do weird things. It wouldn't shock me if, for whatever reason, somehow Anthony Martial ended up at Barcelona. That isn't beyond the realms of possibility. I'd be surprised. But you sort of go, yeah, Nigel de Jong played from last season. You know, not last season, in recent seasons. They've had Memphis Depay there. They've had Aubameyang there. Like these players who were struggling or past their best or on their way down. A 27-year-old Martial, actually, doesn't sound that bizarre, really, does it? So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But obviously, it would be a shock to me to see Barcelona sign Anthony Martial. However, yeah, Pig Rise are here saying they signed Braithwaite, don't forget. Exactly. They're odd. They're very weird. But they managed to turn it into results because they won the league last season. And I know they're not top now, but they sort of started well again this season. So, sorry, Luke de Jong, not Nigel de Jong. Nigel de Jong was the defensive midfielder who played for City. Luke de Jong is the striker who came through Ajax, I think. Was he the one was it Tottenham as well? Came to Newcastle, that was it. You know what I mean? Newcastle reject, playing up front for Barcelona. That's where they are these days. They also signed referees, great point. They're being investigated for that as well, so they've probably got to spend half of that 320 million on fines and whatever else if they get found guilty of tapping up referees. Although Barcelona is just the sort of club you could never imagine them getting relegated, getting fully Juventus, could you? Anyway, that's going to be all from me this morning. Thank you for joining us. Hoyland, just before we go, Greg Frost says Hoyland should be coming on for 20 to 30 minutes a game. Interesting. Yash says they have injuries. Their midfield is elite when healthy. I think they're talking about Barcelona there. They've always got a good midfield, haven't they? They pick all the best Spanish youngsters that there are, stick them in midfield and sort of work it out until you find a world-class one, and that seems like what they've done. That's going to be all from me, like I said. We're going to be back this afternoon with the brew. We've got build up to the game as well. Make sure you check out the preview if you haven't already. United obviously facing Crystal Palace tomorrow, but make sure you check out the brew this afternoon. 4 o'clock, we will be here. Thank you very much for joining me. This is the news on Stretford Paddock. We'll see you in a bit.